Every caviar in the world explained. The most expensive food ingredient legally sold in the world today is not truffle. It is not Wagyu. It is not saffron. It is a spoonful of eggs from an ancient fish species that has existed on Earth for 250 million years, longer than dinosaurs. A single kilogram of the rarest variety has sold for over $34,000. And the entire global supply of it is now controlled by roughly 40 farms in 6 countries, because the wild population is functionally extinct. 14 caviars. From the record-holding Iranian white beluga to the American paddlefish, that specialty producers are quietly repositioning as luxury. This is every caviar, explained. Beluga. Beluga caviar comes from the Huso, the beluga sturgeon, a fish that can grow to over 6 meters long, weigh over 1,000 kilograms, and live for more than 100 years. The eggs are the largest of any caviar. Pale gray to nearly black, roughly the size of small peas, with a delicate skin that ruptures easily on the tongue. The flavor is buttery, creamy, briny, with a long, clean finish. Beluga caviar is now almost entirely farmed. Wild beluga sturgeon populations in the Caspian Sea, historically the source of nearly all beluga caviar, have collapsed by over 90% since the 1980s. The species is classified as critically endangered by CITES, and international trade in wild-caught beluga has been effectively banned since 2005. Modern beluga caviar comes from farms in Iran, Italy, France, and small operations in China. A female beluga sturgeon must be raised for 18 to 20 years before it produces its first eggs. Retail prices for farmed beluga sit at $8,000 to $12,000 per kilogram. 02. Almas. White beluga. Almas caviar comes from albino beluga sturgeon over 100 years old. Extremely rare mutations of the beluga species. The word almas is Persian for diamond. The eggs are pale gold to nearly white, with an unusually delicate flavor that even seasoned caviar tasters describe as ethereal. Almas is the most expensive caviar in the world. In its most legendary form, sold in 24-karat gold tins by the London-based specialty importer Caviar House, prices have exceeded $34,500 per kilogram. Individual 100-gram tins have sold for over $3,000. Genuine almas is now almost impossible to obtain. Most sturgeon farms cannot produce it because the specific genetic mutation required is rare, and the fish must live over a century. Some producers now sell gold caviar from younger albino beluga at $10,000 to $18,000 per kilogram. Technically not almas by strict definition, but marketed under similar terms. 03. Ossetra. Ossetra caviar comes from the Russian sturgeon, Achypenser gueldenstadi, a smaller and faster maturing species than beluga. The eggs are medium-sized, ranging from dark brown to golden amber. Ossetra is famous for its wide color variation. Some tins are almost black, others are pale gold. The gold Ossetra, sometimes called imperial, is the most prized. It comes from older fish, typically 25+ years old, whose eggs have progressively lightened in color over successive spawning cycles. The flavor is nutty, briny, with distinct notes of hazelnut, walnut, and marine mineral. Many caviar tasters consider high-quality Ossetra the best balanced caviar, richer than Sevruga, more accessible than beluga. Ossetra is now produced almost entirely on farms in Israel, France, Italy, Germany, China, and Bulgaria. Prices sit at $2,000 to $6,000 per kilogram for standard grades and $8,000 to $12,000 for imperial gold. 04. Sevruga. Sevruga caviar comes from the Achypenser stellatus, the smallest and fastest maturing of the 3 classic Caspian sturgeon species. The eggs are small, uniformly dark gray to black, with a firm skin and an intensely briny, sharp flavor. Sevruga is the most aggressive of the classic caviars. Not subtle, not creamy. It carries a distinct iodine, mineral, and marine intensity that some describe as the taste of the sea itself. Because Sevruga sturgeon mature faster, around 7 to 10 years compared to 15 to 20 for Ossetra and 18 to 20 for beluga, it has historically been the most affordable of the 3 classic caviars. Prices sit at $1,500 to $4,000 per kilogram. The species is critically endangered in the wild. Almost all commercial Sevruga now comes from farms in Italy, Iran, France, and Israel. 5. Kaluga. Kaluga caviar comes from Huso the river Beluga, a species native to the Amur River basin along the border between Russia and China. Kaluga is often called the poor man's beluga, though at $2,500 to $5,000 per kilogram, this description is aspirational. The eggs are large, dark gray to nearly black, and share much of the buttery, creamy texture of true beluga at a lower price point. The species matures faster than Caspian beluga, 8 to 10 years to first spawn instead of 18 to 20, making Kaluga significantly more commercially viable. Most modern Kaluga caviar is produced by farms in China, particularly along the Songhua River, where hybrid Kaluga Amur sturgeon programs have driven down production costs while maintaining flavor quality. Chinese caviar production has grown dramatically since 2010. It now supplies roughly a third of the global caviar market, much of it Kaluga. 6. Siberian. Siberian sturgeon, Acropensarberii, is one of the most farmed sturgeon species in the world. The species is smaller than Beluga or Ossetra. It matures in 7 to 9 years, produces eggs reliably, and adapts well to a wide range of farming conditions. As a result, Siberian caviar is the workhorse of the modern global caviar industry, produced in France, Italy, Uruguay, Poland, Belgium, and dozens of smaller operations across Europe and Asia. The eggs are medium-sized, dark gray to brown, with a firm skin and a straightforward, briny flavor. Not as complex as Ossetra, not as intense as Sevruga. Balanced, consistent, reliable. Prices sit at $800 to $2,500 per kilogram. This is the caviar most upscale restaurants outside the very top tier are actually using. 7. White sturgeon. Acropensar transmontanus is native to the Pacific coast of North America, from Alaska to California. It is the largest freshwater fish species in North America. American caviar production based on white sturgeon began in the 1980s in California's Sacramento River Delta. Sterling Caviar, the largest producer, began operations in 1980 and now produces one of the most consistent American caviars available. The eggs are medium to large, ranging from gray to dark brown, with a firm skin and a clean, mineral, slightly nutty flavor. Comparable in quality to good Ossetra, but priced significantly lower. $1,500 to $3,500 per kilogram. American caviar remains largely invisible to European luxury markets. The industry has focused on high-end American restaurants and specialty retailers, gradually building a reputation independent of the European caviar establishment. 8. Paddlefish. Paddlefish caviar comes from Polyodon spathula, the American paddlefish, a species native to the Mississippi River basin. Paddlefish are not technically sturgeon, but they are closely related and produce eggs that mimic sturgeon caviar closely. The eggs are small, dark gray to black, with a mild, clean, slightly earthy flavor. For decades, paddlefish caviar was sold as a low-cost alternative to sturgeon caviar in the United States, priced at $200 to $500 per kilogram. In the past 10 years, several American specialty producers, Kentucky-based operations especially, have begun repositioning paddlefish as a luxury American caviar, with prices climbing toward $1,000 per kilogram for premium grades. Paddlefish populations are protected under CITES regulations. Wild harvest is heavily regulated in the US, and much of the commercial supply now comes from small managed operations. 9. Hackleback. Hackleback caviar comes from Scaphorhynchus platorhynchus, the shovel-nosed sturgeon native to the Mississippi and Missouri river systems. Hackleback caviar is the most affordable domestically produced American sturgeon caviar, priced at $100 to $400 per kilogram. The eggs are small, dark, and firm, with a mild flavor that is closer to trout roe than to European sturgeon caviar. The species is not endangered, and wild harvest under permit remains legal in several U.S. states. Most hackleback caviar sold commercially is wild-caught rather than farmed, an unusual situation in a global industry dominated by farm-raised product. 10. Salmon. Salmon roe, Ikura in Japanese, is not technically caviar under strict European definition, which reserves the term for sturgeon eggs only. Under US and Japanese labeling, salmon roe can legally be called caviar. It comes primarily from wild-caught Pacific salmon, chum, sockeye, chinook, and coho. The eggs are large, bright orange to red, translucent, with a pronounced pop when eaten, and a bright, briny marine flavor. Salmon caviar is one of the most affordable caviars globally, at $50 to $200 per kilogram. It is the primary caviar of Japanese and Russian domestic markets, where it's consumed in far higher volumes than any sturgeon variety. In sushi and Russian cuisine, Ikura is a staple. In the West, it is sold as an entry-level caviar alternative. 11. Trout. Trout roe comes from rainbow trout, brown trout, and Arctic char. The eggs are small, bright orange, and pop cleanly when eaten. Trout roe production is centered in Scandinavia, particularly Denmark and Iceland, and increasingly in the United States. It is often marketed as trout caviar. Again, not technically caviar under European definition, but sold widely under the term. Trout roe sits at $80 to $300 per kilogram. It has become popular as a sushi topping, canapé garnish, and mid-range luxury alternative to sturgeon caviar. The flavor is milder and less briny than salmon roe. 12. Lumpfish. Lumpfish caviar comes from Cyclopterus lumpus, a fish that is not remotely related to sturgeon. Lumpfish roe is small, hard, and naturally pale beige. It is almost universally dyed, either black to imitate sturgeon caviar or red to imitate salmon roe, using synthetic food coloring that permanently stains anything it touches. This is the caviar that appears on grocery store shelves for $5 to $15 per tin. It has been sold commercially since the 1960s, primarily from Iceland and Denmark. The flavor is briny, mildly fishy, with a distinct crunch. The color is entirely artificial. Lumpfish caviar occupies a strange market position, sold as the introduction to caviar for millions of Western consumers, while sharing almost nothing in common with actual sturgeon roe beyond appearance. 13. Whitefish. Whitefish roe, sometimes marketed as American golden caviar, comes from various species of the Corrigonidae family, particularly the Lake Superior whitefish. The eggs are small, golden yellow, with a clean, mild flavor. Whitefish roe is produced primarily in the Great Lakes region, and increasingly in Scandinavia and Russia. Prices sit at $80 to $250 per kilogram. In Nordic cuisine, whitefish roe, called lodram in Sweden, is a delicacy served with sour cream, red onion, and dill on rye bread. It's protected under Swedish geographical designation for the specific variety from the Kalix region on the Gulf of Bothnia. Kalix loiram is one of the few non-sturgeon roes with formal European designation of protected origin. 14. Snail caviar. Snail caviar is not fish roe. It is the eggs of the Roman garden snail, Helix aspersa maxima, the same species farmed for escargot. The eggs are pearl white, roughly the size of small peas, with a distinct flavor described as earthy, mushroomy, and mildly briny, closer to truffle than to seafood. Snail caviar was first commercialized in France in the early 2000s by a Burgundian producer named Dominique Pierroux. Yields are extraordinarily low. A single snail produces about 4 grams of eggs per breeding cycle, and only under carefully controlled conditions. It sells for $1,500 to $2,000 per kilogram, making it one of the most expensive non-fish caviars in the world. The product remains niche. It exists primarily as a curiosity in high-end French restaurants and as a proof of concept for what caviar as a category can be redefined to mean. 14 caviars, 10 from sturgeon. 1 from a fish that isn't a sturgeon but pretends to be. 1 from salmon. 2 from smaller freshwater fish. And 1 from a garden snail. The most expensive caviar sold today comes from an albino sturgeon that must live for over a century to produce eggs, from a species that has existed on Earth since before dinosaurs, and is now functionally extinct in the wild. The caviar in your tin is not just a luxury. It is a chemistry of protein, salt, and time. Sometimes hundreds of millions of years of it. Foodology has more, every week.